I'm Adam Blattenberg from Diesel World.
Hi, this is Dan, owner of Dan's Diesel Performance.
I'm Christian Roth of BD Diesel.
I'm Braden Fleece, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. We want to encourage you guys, if you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, to make sure and do that. Just search the Diesel Podcast, will pop right up. Click subscribe, and then make sure and hit the bell for notifications when we release a new episode. So as immediately as we post them, upload it to YouTube, you'll get a notification as well. So make sure you don't miss any episodes. There's a lot of really good information that we have there. There's people who ask a lot of questions, or there's show ideas that we get. There's a lot of our shows are driven based on comments and people saying, hey, can you talk more about this? Or here's a really cool build I'd love to hear about, or I want to hear about this part. So there's a way that we can engage and answer your questions and make sure if there's any topics that you'd like us to cover that we get onto the podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be chatting with Dorian. He's the owner of Power Stroke Enginuities in Houston, and we're going to be talking to him about his shop and their specialty, which is Power Strokes. And I wanted to ask him, what kind of things are people dropping their trucks off for? They've been completely swamped the last year, really busy, and tons of work that's been going on. And we wanted to know what people are having done, and what are some issues that truck owners, regardless of brand, that you guys may be facing out there. So he's going to give us some tips, and then we're also going to talk to him about his race truck. And you've probably seen it in a magazine, on social media, YouTube, at races, anything like that. It's a very unique truck and has a very special message behind it as well. So we're going to talk with Dorian about his time in the Marine Corps and this veteran issue that he wanted to bring awareness to, and he wanted to be able to represent it with his truck and take it to events and try to help people out there. So it's going to be a really interesting, insightful podcast. Before we get to it, though, we want to encourage you guys, if you're looking to cool down your transmission temperatures, make sure and go to Mishimoto.com. You can check out the full lineup of transmission coolers they have for your truck. And if you have a custom application or a custom build, there's also some universal coolers that they have as well. And for the shop owners out there, we know you guys are busy. There's tons of people dropping off their trucks and needing them to get back on the road as quickly as possible. Make sure, if you're not set up with Turn 14 distribution already, that you give them a call. They have a really simple application to fill out, but their system is so smooth for ordering parts. So if you prefer to just log on, see what's in stock, see your price, how quickly you can get it, what the shipping options are, they handle that, and you get receipts emailed right away. So it's easy to be able to handle the invoicing and have everything just right at your fingertips. All right, let's get to the podcast with Dorian and talking about Power Stroke Enginuities, his race truck, and what he has planned for 2021. Dorian, welcome to the Diesel Podcast, and being able to connect with you. I know we've both had busy schedules, but I have a lot of cool things to chat about, from trucks to race trucks, power strokes, lots of things in between. So we're glad to have you on today.
Thank you for having us again.
It's been, I think like the last year has just been really busy and hectic and new for everyone. And it seems like every diesel shop that I chat with, they're just swamped, and it's repair and parts and things like that. And I wanted to kind of start on that part of it and ask you a bit about your company, where you guys are located, when you started, and just kind of what you guys specialize in, for anyone who may not be familiar with you guys. They'll have a little bit of background.
Yeah, our company's called Power Stroke Enginuities. We're out of Houston, Texas, right in the north side, where we grew up out here in this area. We started full-time back in 2011, beginning of 2011. I mean, I started off at Ford dealerships and started venturing out doing side jobs, working after hours and whatnot, and it just snowballed into what we're in now. We specialize, of course, in power strokes. We do some Cummins stuff. We're getting more heavily into Cummins, but I won't touch a Duramax. I just don't even like them. But yeah, it was kind of scary when this whole COVID stuff kicked off, because we got all the guys together and we told them, we're like, hey, I mean, if there's lockdowns, we'll work till we can't and go from there. I mean, it was really scary, but thank God we've been the repair side has been real crazy. I mean, I think right now we loaded up on work, but we're still literally we stopped taking work because we're about, just to look at the truck, we're about 2-3 weeks out, and we got work lined up for a good while. Again, thank God we got work, man, because it was scary when everything kicked off.
Oh yeah, it was, well, weird time with just, I remember seeing on the news kind of in January, maybe not the mainstream news, but I would just see it around, something going on overseas, and then all of a sudden it hits, and where I am in Colorado, it was like there's 1 week they're like, hey, it's going to be a lockdown starting this Monday, and we're like, well, what's a lockdown? And then just chatting with a lot of our guests and just people in the diesel industry and community is like different in each state, and as I mentioned, it's been crazy how much work and how many things are being done. That's what I wanted to ask you about, is what are people doing to their trucks right now, or for the last year? Have they been doing like repair, or?
Yeah, it's basically they've been repairing what they got. I mean, we'll still see the customers bringing in brand new trucks and wanting to do little throttle sensitivity intakes and whatnot, but the regular Joe Schmo everyday truck, they're fixing what they got and keeping them on the road, and they want them running good.
Is most of it, because you guys are doing a lot of Power Stroke stuff, is it a lot of like 6.0s, or is it a little bit of like each, 7.3, 6.0s, 6.4s?
We see some, 7.3s, of course. We got the oil leakers. 6.0s, we see some fuel pressure issues. We still get gasket EGR stuff in here. But most of what we're doing right now is the 6.7 stuff. We're starting to see a lot of the earlier turbos are going out, intercoolers, oil leaks on the bed plates and stuff like that. But fuel systems, man, that's a real big thing right now. People they're not maintaining them, or not just that, but the fuel quality right now is trash. I mean, you can there's a gas station right down the street we told people not to go to, because people have left here as soon as they leave and go fill up, and they wouldn't even make it to the highway. Like, 3 trucks did that, and we're like, where y'all filling up? And it was right down the street. As soon as we dropped the tanks, there's water in the fuel. I was like, okay, we're not using that gas station. So it's just crap fuel, and it's costing people a lot of money on the fuel systems, and that's a big one we're seeing. The CP4s are coming apart, and once that happens, it's game over for your fuel system.
So if somebody brings in a truck and you diagnose it and you know that happened, what is the recommended fix so that they can prevent that in the future? Like, obviously got to maybe replace the injection pump and clean out the fuel system, but what do you tell customers, like, hey, this is what I recommend for you so that you're not back in here in 2 weeks or 2 months or something like that with the same problem?
So there's companies that have like some fuel additives, like we work a lot with Hot Shot Secrets. They have an LX4, and that was designed specifically for the CP4 systems. It helps lubricate them, because they know there's a flaw in the designing of the CP4, the internal. So they add little additives and everything that's needed to lubricate that. There's also a couple companies that make the disaster prevention kits. I know SNS, SPE, and I think those are the big 2 that are making real nice kits. And they're just upgrading them too, so everything's quick release. There's no more cutting lines or anything like that. They're real nice kits, and they go on real good too. But those are the 2 things. That and change your filters and drain your water separators. Like, they don't tell people that when they buy these trucks. They just, here's your diesel, go put 1,000 or 1,000,000 miles on it, you're good. They don't tell them drain your water separator, change your filters, do all. They don't explain all that stuff. And that's what we're here for. I mean, we try to explain to the customer, put them on a maintenance program, and get them to where they can keep that truck for a lot of miles, a long time.
Yeah, and it even saves them money overall. With those upgrades, it's still a lot cheaper than new injection pump and injectors, and who knows where all that metal goes and what it does, and the downtime too.
Yeah, if you start getting metal in your fuel system, if it gets to that point, it's pretty much your CP4. I mean, first off, you gotta drop the tank, clean that, flush the lines, the high pressure pump, all the injectors, all the lines, anything that the fuel touches pretty much on the high side is gonna have to get replaced, because you don't want any contaminants, any debris in there, because you'll be in the same boat right after that. So that's a big thing. It's a big repair.
We get a lot of first-time diesel truck owners, and either when we get a message from them, it's either they just got the truck or they're thinking about getting one. And there's a lot of information that's out there for like upgrades, like what you should do for the transmission or the turbo or just different things. But it's really the fuel is overlooked so much with the quality of it, the components that are on your truck from the factory, and then what can happen. And I know that there's a lot of horror stories out there with guys with an LML or 6.7 Power Stroke or something where the CP4 fails and they've got this huge repair bill. So I know a lot of people listening are definitely going to identify with the fuel system side, and they always ask, well, what can I do to prevent it, and how can I make sure that doesn't happen to me? So that was definitely some good advice.
Yes, sir.
On the other thing I wanted to chat with you about, and I've seen this truck, your truck, for a long time, and I wanted to ask you about it because we've never had the chance to talk to you about the race truck, what inspired you to put it together, how it started, and what the goal was with it when you first got it, and then just had a vision for, hey, I want to build this and take it to shows or take it to races.
Yeah, we always wanted. Well, I always wanted like a little shop race truck, and I had another little 6.0 single cab short bed, and I don't know why I found one online. It was a service bed truck from Oklahoma, single cab, and I told my wife, I was like, I want that truck, to make it the shop race truck. And she's like, well, sell the 6.0 and you can buy it. I was like, shoot, I put that thing on Marketplace and I had it sold the next day. I drove to Louisiana, dropped it off, came back and bought that other one. I showed up and she just shook her head. She's like, what the hell are you going to do with that thing, And so that's what I had a bed. I think my buddy sold me a bed for like $300, so we put a bed on it, had red bumpers, and we just want to make it a little, like I said, a little street truck, put a big single on it, some injectors, and drive it. Then just we ran it a couple times. We used to run the sportsman class, running like, I think we were running like 12.8s or 12.6s or something, just with the was it 366 or something? I don't even remember what setup it had at the time. And it got an itch to go faster. And about that time, I had a good friend, or a good Marine friend that he passed away, and he lost his battle to himself, to his demons, and after that, that's when a whole different vision came along, and we wanted, and I wanted to, I knew there was an issue with veterans and suicide, and we had, I mean, not saying that we had the hugest following, biggest following, whatever, but we have a good presence out there, so I thought, why not use it for good, to show people that there is a problem, there's a pandemic with veterans and first responders and whatnot, that there is issue with they don't have that therapy when they get out. They don't have the there's not the structure they used to have in the military or whatever organization they were in. So when they get out, it's not the same. You're not micromanaged. Your days aren't scheduled anymore. So it's really hard for them guys to come back and just become a civilian again. You're not trained. You're trained to be a Marine. You're trained to be in the Army, do your job, but you're not trained to become a civilian again. So there's an organization called 22 Kill, and my buddy actually introduced me to it, and they do a lot of traditional and non-traditional programs that help veterans and families of veterans or first responders that are lost to suicide. And I emailed the guy one evening, and I was like, hey man, my name's Dorian, I was in the Marine Corps, and I've been following your work, and I was like, I really want to become a part of it. Like, I don't need nothing from you. I just want your permission to wrap my truck with your logo, just to help raise some awareness, and that's where it started. And that's like I tell people. People always ask us why the truck ain't faster. I was like, man, we run on the lowest tune. We run the 670 class, but if I ever break that truck, it'll just it'll just be a broken truck at the shop, and it won't be able to go out there and open avenue for veterans that want to talk and just talk about their issues they're having. My favorite race to go to, it's a real big race, but it's at Rudy's Diesel. But that's one of my favorite ones because there's a couple Marine Corps bases there. And man, at that race, I've had a couple Marine veterans like actually talk to me and break down. Like, I've missed a couple races from. I still remember that guy, and he was talking to me and crying, and he was telling me how the 2 times that he thought about killing himself, that the only thing that kept him alive was his daughter. And just listening to it, that's when I was like, man, it's giving them some kind of avenue, that like some kind of trust. Because I tell people a lot, like, hey, military guys, especially Marines, we're arrogant as hell, and we're not just gonna talk to anybody about any issues we have or problems. So you have to have the same kind of mentality or the same background for you to gain trust our trust, and being able to do that is pretty awesome. It makes you feel good. So that's what makes it worth going to the races and different events. And that's a big thing on that, man.
It's a really powerful message, because when I first learned about that organization, and like you mentioned, the pandemic of it was with your truck. And I think it's also, something where in diesel there's so many active duty and veterans that are into diesel trucks, and it's some of my favorite messages that I ever get are on Instagram, and they're like really late at night, early in the morning, because somebody's in Afghanistan or Iraq or on the ocean somewhere, and the guy's like listening to the podcast, or he's looking at one of the diesel magazines, and he's like, hey, I've got this 2006 Ram, and I'm thinking about doing this, and did you guys ever talk to this guy about this turbo or whatever? And it's like the industry is so connected with it, and I think it's really powerful for you as a veteran as well to be able to connect both sides of it. Like you mentioned, going to an event and talking with someone, they're gonna identify with you, and you're gonna have that common bond with them, where as like me as a civilian, I wouldn't per se. I didn't have those experiences. I don't have that common bond. So I think what you're doing is extremely powerful and helpful, and it's really cool to hear how the truck represents something larger than racing, and even larger than diesel, and larger than the shop, and larger than the podcast, and it's doing good out there.
Yeah. And even it's hard to explain. Like, even when those guys are talking to me, just being able to hear their stories, and I'll share mine, and it even lets me kind of unwind or just let my emotions out,
Yeah.
Like you said, yeah, it's that bond, but that background, it's big. It's a big brotherhood, and it's different. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I think too, with the last year, like we were talking about with the lockdowns and everything, there's so much social isolation that a lot of people have that we're not used to, and it's easy to kind of feel alone. Even just like, you go to the store, and at least here you have to wear a mask to go in the store, so you don't see people's faces, or everybody's kind of 6 feet apart, or you hear somebody cough and you're like, oh man, what's going on? Or just all those sorts of things that have now become natural. And I think it's really important that people don't feel alone, that whether it's your truck at a racetrack, or whether they hear this podcast and they call you up at the shop and just say, hey, Dorian, I heard the podcast, and I want to do this with my truck, or I want to ask you about the organization, whatever it is. It's so important to feel connected and know that people are out there. Someone's out there, even if you never talked to them before, or you just have 1 or 2 connections or something like that. You're not alone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, every now and then, like, we'll get messages on Instagram or even on my personal Facebook or an email. Like, I'll post something, like a little inspirational thing or something, just something that I think about, or something top of my head, and I'll just post a picture or something, and guys will be like, hey man, thank you, I needed to hear that today, or I needed that little push, and that's the thing, man. You can't you don't know what somebody's going through. So sometimes a smile will or anything, just a smile or a wave or a nod will let them step back from that ledge. You know, it's crazy what a little gesture will do to somebody's just the way they're thinking. You know, it's crazy.
I know with the events, a lot of people, well, we're all hoping that everything, is like it was before. And, I've talked with some owners of these like big companies that they're busy all year, and they're like, man, I really missed the events last year because that was my time to catch up with friends and even competitors and, just be able to talk to people because I don't get to socialize as much, when I'm running my business or some of the racers who are, so busy with what they're doing. Those events, those races, those trade shows, were just an opportunity to connect with people that we share an interest with.
Yeah, that was a big thing, especially at events and races. Like you get to, it's like a big family. You race during the day, you're talking mess to each other, racing, and in the evening, we're barbecuing, everybody's hanging out, and if we ain't racing next day, drinking, and that's what made it fun. It makes it that's our little unwind too. Just get out and that little drive, just let you think and relax. And once you get out there on the strip, get a little bit of get your testosterone up and make some runs and go back at it. I do miss them though. I do miss the events because it did give us time to catch up with people and bouncing ideas off of other shop owners or other people. They come to us and ask us like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this setup, or what do you think about this? Especially the 6.7 stuff, because there's not many 6.7s in the 670 class or 590 stuff. So they see that stuff is working and they start asking questions. Even we got a Suncoast converter in our truck, and I had Ron from Suncoast. He comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, you still running a Suncoast converter in that thing?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh shit!" Like he was kind of surprised. We've been running that same converter for like 2.5 years, like no refresh or nothing. It's been pretty good setup we got. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always. When I had somebody ask me once, they said, well, where did the idea for like having a podcast talking about diesel trucks come from? And it came from exactly what you just said, which was being at an event and the conversations you can have with racers and shop owners and just diesel enthusiasts. It's something that can be really hard, like, if I walked into your shop and I said, hey, Dorian, I want to chat with you about your race truck. You've probably got a million things going on and you're getting trucks ready and ordering parts and people are asking you questions. It would be really hard to be able to do that. But we can sit down and we can talk about, what people are doing with their 6.0s or 6.7s and your race truck and just tons of different things and kind of bring a bit of an element of that camaraderie that happens at events no matter where they're at.
No, yeah, it just sucks. Like, I think we have one event here, like, close to us. I think this next year they're doing a couple more, like, the no prep stuff on the diesel side here in Texas. But, yeah, most events are, I think the closest one to us is Florida. And that's still, like, 12 hours. And then the Rudy's one, that's a good, I don't know if I drive by myself, it takes me, like, 24 hours or something like that. It's a good drive. You get some thinking in for sure.
Most of it's driving through Texas.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, at least you're not driving through West Texas. That's where it gets. The halfway point from Houston to San Diego is still in Texas.
I've never driven through Texas, but I've talked with people who have, and they're like, "Man, it goes on forever."
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and after you get like past San Antonio, there ain't nothing out there. It's just dirt and road runners, I guess. Yeah.
So for, I know this year's still early, but what are some new things that you guys are working on, there at the shop or with the truck that you're really looking forward to in this next year?
We got a little project. We've been staying real hush with it, like not posting much on it, but it's 70s bump side F100, and we're pretty much shorting the 6.0 from two-wheel drive and putting the bed and cab on it, and just gonna make it a daily driver, because I like doing like old hot rod shows around here in Texas. There's a bunch of them, and we take our 64 F100 out, and it also has a 6.0 Power Stroke.
Oh, cool.
I want to pull that with another F100 with the 6.0 in it, so we want to make this one a little bit lower, wider stance, and we got a guy that's gonna be doing he's widening the bed and the cab and the fenders, but it's actually gonna be metal. We were thinking about doing fiberglass, but everywhere we're looking, it's all for like Baja stuff, and I don't want no big old openings on 20-inch wheels, you know. Looks funny.
How hard is that build? Like, to get that year era truck and then get a 6.0 in it and get everything to fit?
We let the metal guys do that. I think the hardest part is electrical for us, and it just takes so much time, you know, and which we don't have a lot of, but you have to set some time aside on a weekend and get that working. But as far as like getting it to fit, yeah, we had to cut the firewall out. The hole's you're gonna have holes all over it. The hood, I'm saying. We're gonna run a stack right straight out the hood. But it'll be work. We want to have it mid-year so we can start driving that thing. I want to daily drive it, so that's my vision on that one.
That's
we want to make it. We want to make it the Spooligan diesel truck. Drive the living crap out of it.
Well, people are gonna love it. There's a lot of Ford fans, a lot of Power Stroke fans. So I think people are gonna love that truck.
Yeah, it'd be fun to drive. Fun to see it for sure. It'd be different.
Yeah, it's always cool to see that stuff. Like when, you know, I love the new trucks. I really do. Whether it's a Duramax or Power Stroke or Cummins, I love them. But you can go to any dealership and see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 of them. But you're not going to see a custom truck like, you know, what you're building, or we've had some other guests that have done some really cool builds. They're so unique that it just it draws the attention a bit more than a brand new one.
Yeah, it's like our 64 F100. We'll go park. I think we did Lone Star Roundup in Austin, and man, they're talking about had to be 2,000-3,000 old school. Like it's pre 64, so everything. I mean, from 30s, 40s, and you're talking about immaculate cars. And we parked it between. It was a old Roadster and another F1, I think it was an F1, like original green paint with black fenders, like. And there's people walking around it looking at ours, and like, it's patina, the bed's a different color, the seats aren't bolted down. I was like, all right, they like it. That was pretty cool.
I love the lines on the older vehicles. Just the styling of them was, I don't know. I don't know the right word for it, but there's just something about the styling of things, like from the 30s
the
to
body
60s.
lines.
Yeah.
Those body lines are, they, like most makes back then, they looked somewhat similar, but each one had its own design. And you can, if you know trucks, you'll know it, right? Like you'll know different styles, different years and makes, and just the body lines is what makes those trucks back then. I love, yeah, and of course it has to be a Ford, so. Yeah.
Well, it's like the younger crowd can identify with it too, because if you get into third gen Rams or different style trucks, they can, based on the headlights, and if it's got the amber color on the front, it's this year, and when did their tail lights change to this style? It's like you can just tell by the small things versus, it was just like the old school stuff. But that's really cool. I look forward to seeing that, and I know that there's going to be people who listen are like, hey, this is really cool. I want to follow Dorian and his company, see what they're doing, or I want to get involved in this organization. So I wanted to ask you where people can find you on social media, and if they want to help and help with your message, how do they do that? What's the best way for them to
our social media is just on Instagram, and Facebook is just PSE Houston. Our webpage is psehouston.com. As far as organization, 22kill.com. The one thing that they do is they call it an honor ring. So you wear it on your right hand on your trigger finger, and it's just to honor the fallen have lost their battle to their demons, to what they couldn't fight, So, and it's like, I think it's like $22, and you can donate that way. Or they're setting up more programs throughout the states now, because it was only in Texas, but they're moving. I think there's one in Chicago now. They're moving up like that, but there's different courses that they do, like tribal council. So they'll take a group of guys and just sit around a fire and just talk it out, stuff like that. They have a group called Wind Therapy where they ride motorcycles together. Another one, White Star Families. They take the families of fallen veterans and take their families camping, fishing, stuff like that. There's a lot of programs, and you can look into it. It's on 22kill.com. Definitely a lot of information in there to take in, but if you have the time, definitely go on there and read up on that. You can buy some gear, which helps them. It's a nonprofit, so it helps them get their people in classes and whatnot. That's one thing they had. This COVID stuff has slowed all that down, because the lockdowns, they weren't letting them have their meetings or congregate and all that stuff. So it was really hard for them when this first lockdown happened also, but they're starting to pick back up and all that. So definitely look into 22kill.com.
Yeah, we encourage all of our listeners to definitely go give you a follow, and then also go to 22kill.com as well, and see how they can help and help spread the message. It's a really important topic, and I appreciate you chatting with us today about the truck and about the things you're working on and the business and everything. And I look forward to things kind of getting back to normal, because I have been wanting to go to Houston for a long time, and there's a lot of different companies and guests we've had on that are from there, and I want to check out their trucks. And I know I've seen you post on Instagram some fishing pictures, and I love fishing. I thought, man, I was going to ask Dorian if he'll take me fishing, but then I see on some of these trips there's some alligators in the water where you go, so I'm like, maybe I don't want to go fishing if I go down there.
Yeah, I bought a little aluminum boat, and we take it out, but I started fishing kayak bass fishing in some small lakes out here and reservoirs, and yeah, like I think the last alligator we saw, it was a good 13-footer. And that was on the boat. And another time I went on the backside of that lake, and my wife's like, I told her to text me when she was on her way home so I can get my kayak out and meet her at the house. And it was on a Sunday, so go have dinner or whatever. And she texts me, hey, I'm on my way home, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of the lake. I was like, crap. So I started paddling as fast as I could, and I'm going. I get to a point in the lake where it's like 3-4 feet of water, and I just come to a stop, and I look down, look back, and I hear a splash behind me, and man, I just paddle for my life. I guess I ran up on an alligator while he was just floating in the water, and I didn't even see him. It was in the evening, and then I come up on another one. He's just staring at me. I'm like, oh man, they look a lot scarier at night. That's for sure.
I'm used to just fishing in like lakes and ponds where there's nothing in there that can eat me. It's like. There's some birds in the trees, and yeah, I am a lot bigger than them.
That's my little time to relax too, just being out there by myself on the water, like just fishing. Might not catch anything, but just get to relax just a little bit. So. Well, it was like the last episode that we did with Brendan Morrison, who. He played in the NHL for a while, and then he hosts this TV show called Real West Coast, where he goes fishing all over the West Coast. And I was asking him, where did the passion for that come from? And he said it was just a release. It's a therapy for him, and it always has been, to just get away and kind of detach from everything and just recenter. And when he mentioned that, it reminded me of being a kid, and I grew up in the city, and my dad loved to fish. And so we would go, get up at like 3 a.m, go 2 hours away in the mountains. And it's like, it was just something early on that ingrained in me. Hey, I can get away from the city and the crowds and the drama and all the stuff, and just go sit at a lake or go on a raft or a boat. And it's just therapeutic. So it's something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I know one time, because I pack my little bag. I have my lunch. Like I always make a sandwich and take like some drinks or whatever. And one time it was hot as hell, because it always happens to be like 100 degrees out here when I go fishing on the Sunday. And I just paddled real hard, and I went up on the grass, kind of in the middle of a little opening. And I just sat there and ate my sandwich, just looking out in the woods. And this guy on the boat, he's on the other side of this little island. He's like, "Hey man, you okay?" I was like, "Yep, just eating my sandwich." And are you sure? I was like, "Yep." He's like, I just shook his head and kept going. Probably like, this weirdo just sitting there. It was pretty fun.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Dorian, and chatting with us, and keep us updated on that truck when you got that truck ready to go.
We'll be posting some stuff here pretty soon on it, and I appreciate y'all having us again. Yes, sir.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and give Dorian, subscribe to Power Stroke Enginuities, give them a follow. They post a lot of really amazing pictures. They have really great photography, a lot of insights. They can answer questions for you. Make sure to go to 22kill.com. It's a fantastic message and cause that they have, and if there's any way that you can help and would like to contribute, they have a bunch of different options out there. And for those that are looking to cool down their transmission, the coolers from Mishimoto, they're so smooth. I've actually got a lot of messages from people that have listened to a podcast and they're like, I was doing a transmission removal and replacement, didn't want to put my factory cooler back in, went with this Mishimoto one, and it was just seamless to install. So it's always something that's important to stay on top of temperatures. Make sure you keep those fluids where they need to be so you don't get into having to replace a transmission or torque converter or something like that. And for the shop owners out there, as I mentioned, Turn 14 Distribution makes that process of ordering parts, getting them to your shop so you can keep trucks coming in and out and getting back on the road as easy as possible. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.